God, we do thank you for the words of that song. We thank you that your presence is enough when we struggle. And so, God, we just lift those up to you. Whether it's us here today that are struggling with something or just someone that we know and we're walking alongside of them or we're just having to stand by and watch them struggle, we just claim the words of that song, that your presence and your power is enough. And then, God, I just thank you for those of us who, at this point in our lives, we just have things that we're celebrating, and we just want to honor you and praise you for that as well. And then, God, I thank you for this church. I thank you for the mission that you've called us to in this world. I thank you for the way that you just continue to lead and guide us throughout that. And then, God, I just pray that as we continue to look into this series about what the early church looked like and how they begin to structure themselves and how they begin to put you at the center of everything that they did, I just pray that you would teach us the things that you want us to know. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. So good morning. It's good to see everybody. Welcome to our service. If you're online, I hope you're online. We had a little glitch getting started with our online stream, but hopefully everybody has found us now. But welcome to our service. It's great to all be worshiping together, either on campus here or online. If you're a guest, if it's your first time worshiping with us, I just especially want to welcome you to our service. There's a connection card in the seat pocket in front of you. There's a quick link online if you're online and this is your first time. Or maybe you've been here a couple times but never filled one of these out. We just love to connect with people and find out just a little bit about where you're coming from and who you are and that sort of thing. So if you're here, you can just drop that in the offering box at the back if you want to share any of that information with us. And also, if you're a guest, if you're first time, or maybe you've been here for a few weeks over the summer and just kind of checking us out, maybe you're looking for a church and you're still not sure about things, we are starting something back up. We actually kind of stopped this during COVID for obvious reasons, but we're starting it back up this week, the third Sunday of every month. We do something that we call Circle 5, and Circle 5 is just an opportunity, if you're brand new, for us just to take about 5 minutes of your time right after the service just to answer some of the frequently asked questions about our church. And so if you're interested in that, you can join me right down here at the Circle 5 banner after this service. I'd love to just connect with you. And again, just take about 5 minutes of your time just to tell you what I think is great about our church and answer any questions that you might have about that. So I've got several announcements this morning. I told you last week, keep an eye on your newsletter because there's a lot coming up between now and the end of the year. So pay attention, be proactive so that you're in the know about what's coming up. But here's a few things. First of all, we've been talking about our college care ministry. So if you have college students and we want to stay connected with them throughout the year, we want to send them some encouraging cards. We want to send them some goodie boxes when it comes final exam or midterm exams, things like that. And so parents, sign your college students up. And here's why I say that. I have 2 college students, and Lex texted all of the college students and said, here's the link, here's the contact form, just fill it out real quick so we have the most current information for you. He texted my 2 college students that information. We texted our college students that information. One of them filled it out, okay? One of them didn't, and I won't tell you which one didn't because I don't want to embarrass her, okay? But anyway, so I filled it out for her, and because I want her to stay connected. So parents, your college students may not sign themselves up. You may need to do it for them. So you can just scan this barcode. It's also in our newsletter. Lex has sent out some stuff as well. So connect your college students. The other thing that's coming up on October 2nd, we are having an all-church meeting. This says 5 o'clock. Our newsletter said both 5 o'clock and 5:30. It's 5:30, okay? We'll get this fixed between now and next week, but we shifted it to 5:30 because we just want to make sure we could get student ministry underway at 5 o'clock and get all that settled, and then we'll meet. But we'll be meeting in here at 5:30 on October 2nd to go over some of the information that we've gotten from our strategic planning process. So we've done the discovery phase of that. We did the TCI, which was the online survey that we asked everybody in the church to fill out. We did 6 focus groups with different people in different places in the church. Our consultant met with all of them in focus groups, and he has taken all of that, put it into an executive report form, and given it to us. Our alignment team has been looking over that and talking about it a little bit, and we are going to send you in a couple of weeks all of that information. and you can dig through as much of it or as little of it as you want. There's a lot of information there, but on October 2nd, we just want to meet, go over some of that, answer any questions you have, highlight some of it, and talk about what some of the next steps are in our strategic planning process so that you're aware of that. And then we just want to spend some time in prayer over that. So join us if you're able to do that on October 2nd at 5:30. And then the next thing is small groups. Small groups are getting ready to launch the week of August 17th. One of them, our young adult group, if you're in that group, it's meeting. I think it's launching a week earlier than that. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about small groups as a part of the message today, so I'm not going to get into it too much. But I do want to point you to the new information board that we put up. It's just to the right on the wall in the lobby there, and that's going to change throughout the seasons depending on what we're doing. If we've got an event coming up where we're trying to get information out or sign-ups, we'll be using that board for that. Right now, it's our small groups board. So all of our small groups are out there to eat individually. They're on clipboards with the title, who's hosting, all the information about them, and places for you to physically sign up here today if you want to or when you're in the building. We will keep that updated with people who are signing up for those groups, because what we found is a lot of times people want to sign up for a group where they know somebody in the group. So you can see that every Sunday when you come in and see who's in each group and see if you want to connect with a group based on some people that you might know in that group. But check out our small groups. Sign up for one. You can do that online, and you can do it here in person. And then the next thing is we are creating a new communication option for you. We're trying to just figure out how can we communicate as efficient and as effective as possible. That was one of the things that came up in the TCI and in the focus groups was communication. It always comes up because churches always struggle with communication. Every church has especially struggled since COVID because we've just had all kinds of digital overload and all that. So a lot of you get the newsletter each week, right? We send that out through email, and I keep telling you need to get that if you don't, so sign up for it. It's real easy. Just go to our website, go to the bottom of the homepage, fill out your email, and it will sign you up to get our weekly newsletter. But a new option is texting. If this is your gig, and a lot of you love to receive text, you don't dig into your email too much, all you have to do is text this number, 833-320-3047, and in the text, just write circle, I think is what it is. Yeah, just type circle, and that will sign you up for our all-church texting. And I promise you, we're not going to bombard you with a whole bunch of text, just like the newsletter. We send it out once a week, and that's pretty much it, occasionally an extra thing. But we'll be sending texts out just as a reminder of things, like when we get close to the all-church meeting, we'll just blast out a text and say, hey, we'd love to have you at 5:30 on Sunday. Come join us if you can, just as a reminder. This is something we've already been testing out with our student ministry, because one of the things that our parents told Lex, our student pastor, was, we love the newsletter. It's got all the information we need. We really appreciate having that, but it gets lost in the shuffle. It just gets lost in our inbox. We don't refer back to it. We forget about it. So we just need a reminder to look at our newsletter every now and then. So he started doing that, and he's used the texting for some other things. So if this is something you're interested in, go ahead and sign up anytime you want to. You can opt out anytime you want to. And this slide and the college ministry slide will also, they'll be scrolling at the end of the service. So if you didn't get it now, you can catch it at the end of the service. I think that's it. We're going to be rolling out another new way for you to stay connected in the next 2 Sundays, so be looking for that. I'll tell you about that next week. But I think that's it. I think that's all of our announcements. And so before we jump into this morning's message, I do just want to encourage, especially our folks online, to stick around. I always pray right after we finish the message before our team leads in a closing song. But just stick around, especially if you're online. I've got just a quick update for everybody that I want to give you before we head out today. So don't leave the service too early. That's not usually a problem for you all who are in the room, because we closed the doors at the back. But we're in this new series that we started last week, where we're just taking 8 weeks and kind of walking through the highlights of Acts. And there's so much in Acts, we could really spend about a year in the book of Acts. It's that big, and there's that much stuff in there. But anyway, we're spending 8 weeks in Acts, and next week, don't miss next week. We're gonna look at a story in Acts next week that I guarantee you most of us in the room have never heard. Those of us who have heard this story probably haven't heard it since we were in Sunday school or Bible school. I've never, I don't know why, because it's an incredible story, I've never taught this story before in a sermon. So it's an incredibly dramatic story. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to leave you hanging and hook you to come back next week or to check it out online later. But don't miss next week as we look at that. But last week, where we left off, we started at Acts chapter 1, and we left off with Jesus, who had just been crucified and raised from the dead. I told you Acts is pretty much what happens after that, right after the resurrection. We get to the resurrection in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and we go, what happened next? Acts is what happened next. It was written by Luke. And Luke tells us that after he was resurrected, Jesus spent 40 days, just 40 days with people trying to convince them that he was alive, that he was really him, and he really did come back to life. And he also, Luke said, he also spent 40 days talking about the kingdom of God and what the kingdom of God was gonna be like. And then Jesus just leaves. And it's not like he just kind of leaves town. He just somehow miraculously just leaves planet Earth. I said it was this big mic drop moment, right? He said, here's what the kingdom of God is like. See ya, and he's gone. But he had just promised, just before that, he just promised his followers that he was going to send them a gift. It was the gift of the Holy Spirit. And so he wasn't going to be there physically with them, but he was going to be there spiritually with them to guide them. And in Acts chapter 2, that's exactly what happens. In this very dramatic way, we call it Pentecost. It's referred to as Pentecost. The Holy Spirit comes and everything changes. You should check out that part of Acts chapter 2 when you get a chance. It's a dramatic scene. And at that moment, really, this was really the point where the church was formed. And Luke tells us that the church at that point just exploded. I mean, it started out at about 123 people, and after the day of Pentecost, it was up to 3,000 people, Luke tells us. And it just continued and continued to grow. And here's how Luke concludes chapter 2, talking about the church. He says, here's what they did. The followers of Jesus in the church, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to one another who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. So what we have here in this passage that Luke gives us is a description of what community looks like. Community within the context of faith. Community within the context of Christianity, within the context of the church. Luke gives us a description of what true, authentic community, not shallow, surface, kind of how you doing kind of stuff, but real, genuine, authentic communion. He gives us a picture of what that looks like. And it says that they met in this large group, right, regularly, much like what we're doing in the temple courts. They met in these large groups like we are today, so that the apostles could come and could teach them what Jesus had taught them, could teach them some vision about what the church needed to be and should be and would be, and give them some instruction there. And everyone was hearing that same teaching. But he says they also met in these small groups. They met in these small groups in homes where people could get to know each other, where people could meet each other's needs and encourage one another and support each other. And this kind of community, this is what we're trying to create here. It's what every church should be trying to create. And we use a very, very similar strategy here to do that they did in the early church. We use this large group, small group kind of a strategy for teaching each other and for caring and supporting each other. I mean, the large group, what we're doing right here every week is important because it's an opportunity for us all to learn together and learn the same thing. It's an opportunity for us to cast vision about our church and where we're headed and what we're doing. and all of that, but we also do this small group thing. And so today, since we're getting ready to launch a new small group semester in just a few weeks, I want to talk about that part of it for a few minutes. And I want to point out some of the things that the early church did to create this authentic community within their small groups. And then I just want to make a case for why I think we all ought to connect with a small group. So here's the first thing that the early church did. In the Acts church, first of all, they devoted themselves from moving from anonymity to being known. It says they devoted themselves to the fellowship. They connected with other people. And this is the essence of fellowship. It's moving from anonymity, from not being known, from being anonymous, kind of getting lost in a crowd, to actually being known by others. It's allowing your life to be interconnected with the lives of other people. Now, in our culture, in Northern Virginia, in this fast-paced, busy culture that we live in, there's a lot of challenges to this. And I've been in this area for over 28 years now. One of the biggest challenges to experiencing authentic community, I think, that I've seen happen within the church in this area revolves around children. I've seen this a lot when couples move into being parents, and they have small children. One of the things that they think is that this part of our lives, this idea of connecting in community like this, well, that's something that we're just going to have to forego for now. In this season of our life, we're just not going to be able to do that. Maybe the pursuit of community, maybe it worked for them when they were in youth group or something like that, or when they were in college or early adulthood. But now, now we're in this season and we have kids, and we're just going to have to put that aside, being in that kind of community for a while. But moving from anonymity to being known, it's not just for adults. It's for the whole family. I will tell you this, that for Marcia and I, when we had our kids and when they were younger, being in small group made all the difference in our lives. It made all the difference in our parenting. The encouragement that we got, the experience that we got from other people. Sometimes it was people in our group who were further along in the process than we were, and they'd already learned the hard way, and we didn't have to because we could learn from them. Some of it was just showing up with people who were going through the exact same thing. Oh yeah, your kids are crazy too. We thought it was just our kids. No, it's everybody's kids. It's just that time of year. It's the school year or whatever. It was incredibly encouraging to us. It was invaluable to us as parents. And having our kids around other adults and other families, that was an important part of our kids' spiritual growth. And so it's important, I think, for everybody to connect. So if you're in that phase, or if something else is going on in life where you're just like, I just don't think I can connect in this season, I would challenge you to push back on that a little bit. That brings me to the next observation about the early church, and this is my favorite one because it involves food, okay? And how many of you have ever been in a small group at some point, this church, another church, or whatever, but a small group where you ate dinner, you ate dessert, you ate lunch, you ate something, right? And maybe not every week, but every time you met, but every now and then, right? Yeah, a lot of us who've been in groups, I'm seeing a lot of head nods and hands going up on that one. Here's what Luke said. He said they ate together, right? They broke bread in their homes, and they ate together with glad and sincere hearts. Sometimes if you look in Scripture, the kingdom of God is actually described as a banquet. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is because there's something celebratory when we come together around the table, right? There's just something that happens. Relationships are sometimes renewed around the table. Stressful days are kind of put into perspective when you gather around the tables. Sometimes barriers that separate people kind of come down when you gather around the table. So the early church, one of their characteristics is they just got together and they ate together. And it made an incredible difference in their lives and in their community. Another characteristic is they prayed together. They prayed together. Prayer is one of the defining characteristics of the groups that we read about in Acts chapter 2. And it should always be one of the characteristics of our small groups as we meet together. And in your groups, if you join a small group, I'd encourage you to actually designate someone just to keep a running list of your prayer needs and the things your group is praying about, and celebrate those when when they get answered. I remember I was co-hosting a small group several years ago with someone, and we had somebody who volunteered. Normally I would do that, or our other hosts would do that, but we had somebody who volunteered to do this for our group. In fact, they brought up, they said, I want to do this. Some of you know Claudia Atherton, who used to attend our church. She spoke up and she said, the first night, she said, I want to do this. And every week she would go around the room and just ask, what are we praying about? What do you need? What do you need God to do in your life? And she would keep track of that, and she would email us during the middle of the week to remind us and to update us, and we would celebrate those things. It made a huge impact on what we are doing. And then here's another defining characteristics of these Acts 2 groups. It was that they served together. They served together. We're told, if you read through the book of Acts, that the followers of Jesus in the Jerusalem church, that they held on loosely to their stuff. They held on loosely to their possessions, and they were always ready to respond to anybody who was in need. And Luke actually tells us that when somebody was in need, the church members had a yard sale. Right? I mean, they sold their own stuff and gave it away to the people they were connected with in these authentic communities who had a need. Talk about incredible stuff going on in these churches. One of the questions I think every small group should constantly be asking themselves is, what as a group do we need to do that's beyond ourselves? What can we do as a group that's bigger than us, that's more than any of us could do as a single person or as a couple? What is something that only we could do if we pooled our resources and our energy and we did it together? Or asking the question, how can we serve each other? How can we serve our church? Or how can we serve in our community? And one of the things I love about us doing the small group semesters the way we do is almost every semester there's something going on in the church that's an opportunity to serve through. Like, for instance, this coming semester, it's going to end up just as we're getting ready in the early December to do our Feed My Starving Children meal pack. That would be an incredible opportunity for your small group to say, hey, we're going to grab 2 tables in meal pack, and we're going to serve around those 2 tables together. We're going to show up on the same shift, and we're going to serve together as a group. There was another characteristic of the Acts 2 church, and it was this, that they had a strong commitment to be present with one another. I mean, we're told, in fact, that Luke says they actually met every day, daily. Now, the reality is, in today's world, in today's Northern Virginia, you're probably not going to be able to structure your life to be a part of a small group and reorder your life so that you can meet with them every day like they did in Acts chapter 2. It was a different day, and it was a different culture and all of that. But it's hard to experience authentic community. It's hard to experience authentic community if there's not a strong commitment, however often the group meets, if there's not a strong commitment to be a part of the community and to be present every time that community comes together, that small group comes together. And again, we live in a culture where I realize that's hard to do. It's hard to be present on a regular basis, whether it's present in worship, present in small group, present in serving in wherever we've been called to serve. I mean, we live in a culture that's just on the move. We have jobs. Our kids are highly involved in things. We have to travel, and we're gone, and we're connecting with family who lives all the way around the country and sometimes around the world, and we have all of these commitments just kind of go on with life. But the picture of Acts 2 that Luke is given us is a picture of a community that has decided that they're going to make a commitment to be present with each other, to actually order their lives around Christ-centered community rather than trying to order Christ-centered community around the rest of their lives. And it's not until we do that. It's not really until we do that we begin to order our lives around Christ-centered community that we can begin to experience the incredible things that we see in the church in Acts. I mean, here's the bottom line. You can't have an Acts 2 community without an Acts 2 commitment. You just can't have one without the other. So let me close just by giving you some next steps, just some things to consider if you're looking for this kind of community, if you're looking to connect with other followers. And if you're a follower of Jesus, you should be wanting authentic community. I hope you're looking for authentic community because you need authentic community. I need it. We were wired this way by God. So if you want it, here are some next steps. The first one is just simply join a group, right? Just join a group. We'll help you find a group if you need help finding a group. Like I said, all our small groups are listed out on our information board. Next week, Lex will be back. He's our discipleship pastor. He will be out there to talk to you about any of those groups. I'm around here. If you want to come down front afterwards, after I'm done with Circle 5, I'm happy to talk to you about any of our small groups. Any of our staff, any of our small group leaders would love to connect with you about the groups that we're leading or they're leading. I'd love to take you out for coffee, even if you don't end up joining a small group. You'll get a free grande out of me, okay? But anyway, we would love to help you find a group. And one of the things that we've done this semester is we've tried to make our groups as accessible as possible. In fact, we met with our small group leaders a while back, and one of the things that Lex and I said was, let's figure out, let's get creative, let's think outside the box. How can we make it more accessible for people to connect, knowing the culture that we live in? We have one group that's meeting on Fridays, and I think this is awesome. They're meeting both in person and online at the same time, right? So a hybrid approach. So if you're going to meet in person in this particular group, you're going to show up at 6:30, and they're going to have some fellowship, and it's Max and Carolyn Inman over here, and so they're going to have some food, I'm sure, and it will be good food, okay? Because I've had Carolyn's food, and it's always good. But anyway, you can show up at 6:30 for that part of it, and then if you're online, they're going to crank that up at 7:30, and so everybody in the room and everybody online will be together for their small group. We've got folks that from other parts of the country that are connected to that particular group. We have a group that's going to be meeting on Tuesdays, and we've got a young adult group that's going to meet on Thursdays, because we recognize that Fridays and Saturdays aren't always great for people, but weeknights are good for other people. So we have those groups. We have a group that's going to meet on Fridays, and they will do, they're going to meet every other week. They're going to rotate every other week. On one week, they're going to do their discussion. They're going to do it virtually, because that's going to make it easier for those of you with parents to be a part of that discussion. If you just have to stay in your own home and you can manage your kids while you're on there, and you don't have to take your kids out and get them settled and then have a discussion. And then the other weeks on Fridays, the off weeks, they're going to meet together in somebody's home for some social activities where the whole family is invited to that. So incredibly creative. We have a group that's meeting on Sundays. That's all virtual. I mean, it doesn't get any more accessible or easier than that. All virtuals. We have the group that my wife and I are going to host in our home. It's going to meet on Friday nights. We're going to meet every other Friday night. We're going to take a week off in between, just so we're not having to commit every Friday night for the next 6 to 8 weeks. We're going to spread that out and meet every other week. So there are lots and lots of options, and again, they are as accessible as they've ever been. So find a group and plug into it. And by the way, if you're not sure about this whole group thing, I understand that. You're not alone. Here's what I always tell people. We do it by semester, where we have a small group for a little while, then we take a little while off, and then we have another small group semester, and then we take some time off. We do that on purpose. You're not committing to the rest of your life. You're only committing to about 6 to 10 weeks at the most with this group. And then if it doesn't work out, if it's not your thing, if you don't like it, there's another semester rolling around and other groups that you can try out and jump into and all of that. Here's the second step. After you've joined a small group, show up, right? Sometimes that's the hardest thing, is just getting in your car and going, or logging on and showing up. But make a commitment to be present as often as you can. So show up, because here's the deal. In order to make that kind of a commitment for the next 8 to 10 weeks, you might have to reorder your life a little bit. You might have to shift some things around to be able to make that kind of a commitment. And after you find a small group, after you show up for the small group, pray regularly for the people in your group and find ways to serve together. I mean, because when you begin to put the needs of other people ahead of your own, God does something within you spiritually that you just can't get any other way. It grows you spiritually more than any Bible study and any sermon ever could when you're investing and giving back to other people. Let me show you one more part in Acts 2, and then we'll wrap up. And this is This is my favorite part of the message, and it's my favorite part of community. When authentic community happens, you can't keep people away. One of the best ways to reach our community for Christ is by living in this Acts 2 authentic community. Here's what Luke says happened. He said, "And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved." And again, we know that the early church, the Jerusalem church, grew into thousands as this took off. When community happens, as messy as it can be, as difficult as it can be, as challenging as it can be to make those commitments, when authentic community happens and people see that, they want to be a part of it too. So I hope you'll be a part of one of our small groups this semester. And as you do, I hope you find real authentic community along the way. Let me pray for you. God, I thank you for this church. I thank you just for an opportunity we have every Sunday where we come together in this large group setting where we can celebrate who you are in our lives together, where we can learn together, where we can figure out where the church is heading together and all of that. So we thank you for this time. But God, I think even more for our small groups. Because God, I think they are even more important than what we do on Sunday mornings for our spiritual growth and for our health. And so I pray for each one of our groups that we're going to have this semester. I pray that everybody would find a group and plug into it. I pray that it would be an incredibly great experience as they connect with people they've already known and already been doing life with, or as they connect with people they don't know and begin to build new relationships that are just incredible in their lives. So we thank you and we praise you for that. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. So our team's going to lead us in a song, but I told you I needed to give you an update, so I want to do that really quickly. In June, I made you aware. I sent you an email through our newsletter, and I mentioned it in a couple of our services, that our church's financial contributions were down for the year. We're down significantly for the year, and our administrative council, our alignment team, was going to be keeping an eye on all of that. I sent you all of this information this week in your newsletter, so if you got your newsletter and you've read it at this point, it comes out on Thursdays, this is going to be review for you, but it's so important. I just wanted to make sure we all got the information. But our alignment team has met. Our chair of our admin council and our treasurer also met with them a couple of times over the last few weeks to begin looking at this and talking about what this means for 2023 as we start getting ready to plan our budget, because we run a January to December budget cycle. And so as we move into 2023, here's some things that we all just need to be aware of. First of all, 2020, as we went into COVID, and 2021 were really strong years for financial giving. We were surprised by that. We were kind of prepared for 2020 when COVID hit for things to hit here too. I've always said that Northern Virginia, the DC metro area, is not recession proof. It's typically recession delayed, right? And so we've kind of seen that because as we moved into 2022 or 2021 in October, we started seeing a drop. November, December were really strong giving months. That's normal. January was very low. All of that is really typical for giving cycles in our church and probably for most churches. The end of the year is higher. The beginning of the year is lower. So it didn't raise any red flags for us at that point. But as we got into the spring and heading into the summer months, we realized it just wasn't bouncing back. We've had a lot of turnover. We have less attendance since COVID and all of that. Did I just lose my mic? I'll just have to speak up. Probably a battery. Anyway, so a lot of that has affected all of that. But based on analysis, one of our team members kind of did a deep dive into our donor system and giving patterns and all of that. Our team believes that things have stabilized where they are, but it's still down around $16,000 a month from what it's been over the last couple of years. So it's pretty significant. And so we're projecting a budget shortfall for 2022 between giving and our actual expenses. And the result of all of that means that we've had to go into our savings for about $160,000 to $170,000, give or take, depending on how the end of the year finishes out, just to supplement our 2022 expenses. Now, the great news in all of this is we went into all this with a sizable amount in our savings. So we were able to absorb all of this. We've currently got around $582,000 in savings. So we're blessed to have that. But we know that the budget for 2023 is going to have to look differently. It's going to have to be reduced. So our teams are already starting to work on that. They've already met on that. Our administrative council is going to be meeting again this week to map out and to begin putting together a draft budget for that. It's going to take them several weeks. And so in late October, you're going to get a draft budget for 2023. And on Sunday, October 30th, you don't have to write this down because we'll send you a bunch of information. We'll text it to you, okay, and remind you. But on Sunday, October 30th, we're going to have an all-church meeting really quickly right after the morning service so that we can present that draft budget. We can answer any of your questions you have about it, get your input on it, and then based on all of that, our team will put together a final budget that will be presented to the church, as we always do in our annual business meeting in December. Now, I know this is a little bit uncomfortable to talk about. We don't like talking about finances in our church or in churches in general. It can be scary to hear some of this. But like I said, I'm so thankful that we're going into this situation financially strong. And God has blessed us with that as we've gone into it. And, you know, the interesting thing about our church is we've always stewarded our resources really, really well. We don't do things extravagantly. In fact, that's one of the things that came out of the TCI and the focus groups is how people look around and say, they don't seem to waste money here. They seem to spend it on really good things and practically and in a really positive way. Like most churches, COVID has changed everything, right? But here's the deal, and here's what I said in our newsletter, that our mission still remains the same. This is the mission of our church, to develop followers of Jesus, to connect them in community like we talked about today, and to help create a passion for serving others in them. And we can still do that. And we can do that out of an abundance. We can do that out of scarcity. But we can still achieve this mission as Fairfax Church, Circle Church. And here's the deal. The early church that we're looking at in Acts, they did this. And they had no resources. They were the poorest people you would meet. They had no platform whatsoever. They had no kind of power whatsoever. And they changed the world. And it's still affecting our world today. So let me just say this, and then I'm done. First, thank you to our leaders, to our staff, to our teams who are helping us figure this out. They have some incredible wisdom. I told them in our meeting, I was like, this is my first rodeo, since, you know, we've always had strong finances in our church for the last 18, 20 years. I've never walked through anything like this. And so I'm so thankful for the people who are in place right now on our alignment team and our administrative council, because they are the right people who have the wisdom and experience to help us navigate this right now. So I'm thankful for them. You should thank them when you see them. Second, to those of you who have a financial commitment to this church, I just want to thank you for that. We could not do this without you. And some of you, you're able to give out of an abundance, but I know some of you give, and you have a commitment to giving where it's not always easy for you, where it not only stretches your faith, sometimes it stretches your personal finances. And I'm so thankful for the generous people who make this happen in our church. And then third, if you consider this your church home, and I'm not talking to anybody here who's new or checking us out or this is not your church, but if you consider Fairfax Circle your place, your church home, then you should have a plan for supporting it in some financial way. I mean, Scripture tells us that we should give with a grateful heart, right? And if you're grateful to your local church, you should give to your local church. You should help support it. If you're grateful that you have a place on Sunday mornings to come where you can kind of forget about all the other stuff for that week, and you can be around other people who are kind of in the same place and focusing on God and what God is doing in your life, then you should help support that. If you're grateful that your kids or your students have a place to come where adults are investing in their life and their spirituality, if you've got college students and you're grateful that there's a church here in North Virginia that's still staying connected with them no matter how far from home they are, then you should support that in some way financially. By the way, when it comes to our alignment team and when it comes to our staff, and I always tell you, our alignment team is, I believe, our most important team in the church. It's our core leadership team. It's our corporate board of directors on a legal basis, but it is the team that is tasked with keeping us aligned. That's where we came up with the term. aligned with our mission, aligned with our core values, aligned with our doctrine, and aligned with our strategic plan moving forward. That is their responsibility, and it is a huge responsibility. They're the ones that make sure our staff are doing their jobs and are resourced to do their jobs. And when it comes to our alignment team, when it comes to our staff, there's an expectation that there's a financial commitment on their behalf. Every year, we rotate 2 off and 2 on, and they have to take a year off before they can come back on to the team. And as we're looking for people to invite to be a part of our alignment team, we always look for 4 areas of commitment. Are they committed to worship? Do we see them on a regular basis, or are they online regularly and joining us for worship and growing together? Are they committed to community like we just talked about today? Are they committed to serving in some kind of ongoing way? And are they committed financially to the church in some way? So just know that the leaders who are leading us right now, they're leading by example in this area. Now, if you got any questions about any of that, please don't hesitate to ask me or one of our staff members or one of our team members. We listed all of our team members in our newsletter this week so that you would know who they are on the alignment team and the administrative council. They would love to have a conversation with you about any of this. And I want to ask you to make sure you can be here on October 30th as we just talk about next year's budget and what that looks like for us as well. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I hope you have a great week wherever you are. Sign up for small groups. Sign your college students up to get their stuff. Let's pray one more time, and then our team's going to lead us in song. God, I thank you again for this church. I thank you for just the great things that you've done in and through this church through the years and continue to do, from the partnerships we have locally and around the world that just help us to serve others who are in need, to just being able to join for worship and small groups and all throughout the week. Thank you for our kids ministry and our student ministries that invest in students. Thank you for our college students and for those who keep connected with them throughout the year to remind them that we're here praying and thinking about them. And then, God, I just thank you that through the years you've always resourced us with the things that we needed to do the things you've called us to do. So, God, I pray that you would just continue to give us the resources we need, that you would give us the wisdom to know how to do more with less if that's what we need to do, and that ultimately you would be honored and glorified in everything we do as a church. In Christ's name I pray, amen.